Well, joining us this morning to speak a bit more about food security is Agriculture and Marine Resources Minister, the Honourable Michael Pintard, who was among those giving communications in the House of Assembly on Monday. Now, at the time, a minister spoke of a task force on food security that's to be established this week. Minister Pintard, tell us more about this, the focus and really the difference between this task force and the National Food Committee.
The Prime Minister has mandated two things. One is that the farmers, fishers, the entire sector all along the value chain ensure that all gaps that exist that prevent us from producing more, that those be addressed even more aggressively, and that we increase in a dramatic way over the next few months, and of course, throughout the third and fourth quarter of the year, that we increase production. And so the Task Force on Food Security is looking at what we must do all along the value chain, the supply chain, to make sure that all of our stakeholders are working in tandem in order to increase production and produce those things that we can competitively produce that we are now importing. So our import substitution process is going to be managed by the Food Security Task Force. The Food Distribution Committee established by the Prime Minister was to respond to the many vulnerable Bahamians who find themselves in need of assistance for food. And in his wisdom, the idea was to pull together key stakeholders with a tremendous amount of talent who are plugged in to both national and international network in order to accomplish this. And so both of them will work in tandem. Obviously, the Food Distribution Task Force will, in fact, source food first and foremost from Bahamians, and where items are not available, whether it's fresh fruits and vegetables, processed foods, or livestock, they would then source through other means.
Now, you note that there's the assurance that in terms of food stocks, we have sufficient short and medium-term supply chains to continue operating effectively. Give us a better idea of what timeline we're working with and efforts to ensure that we don't run low at any time.
Well, a part of the responsibility of the Ministry of Agriculture is to constantly monitor food stocks, whether it's by domestic producers or those foods being imported. And as you would be aware, that we are in charge, by and large, for the permitting system, permitting wholesalers, retailers to bring in quite a bit of the items that they do. And so in conversations with them, the Policy and Planning Division has sent out to those persons. The Prime Minister himself has spoken to key stakeholders who import food and purchase food. And so we're satisfied that in the short to medium term, the international disruptions have not impacted us in a way that some people have feared. However, we have to be vigilant. This is a very dynamic situation, so we continue to monitor on a weekly basis what the state of the food stock is in the Bahamas. We've gone as far as to look at the storage capacity, what's in storage, what's in dry storage, cool storage, frozen storage, and also to constantly monitor, in conjunction with Ministry of Transport and Aviation, the transportation chain, so that at a moment's notice we're able to move food to areas where there may be challenges. So the long-term plan, however, is to ensure that we are in a better position, that in the event that there are disruptions externally, that we are in a position to fill some of those gaps.
But you can say if that short and medium term would take us into another month or until June, particularly
we're comfortable over the course. The short to medium term, over the next 90 days, we do not foresee dramatic disruptions that's going to affect this public. But like I said, this is a dynamic situation. We continue to monitor. In addition, I'm a part of a collective of agriculture ministers, both in the Caribbean through CARICOM and Latin America and the Caribbean through AICA, which is the agriculture arm of the Organization of American States. So we're constantly talking. And what we're also doing is documenting where we have domestic supplies in shortage or in surplus. we are also in a position to source items and then work out with our respective governments the transportation logistics. So we are not relying solely on what comes to the Bahamas from North America. We are also looking at stocks within the region.
Now, to reduce our reliance on imports, quite a few things have been ordered, as you noted in the House of Assembly on Monday, like backyard gardening kits. Over $1.6 million spent on this phase alone, you disclosed at the time. What do you see as the final figure?
Well, several things. One is we're dedicating at least $1 million, $1,018,000 and change to land clearing and preparation. So it is important that farmers be readied or put in a position that they can go into cultivation. We have a fairly good sense because we are continuing to collect the data, and we're asking farmers throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to share. What do you have in the field presently? When do you expect to harvest? So that we have a 90-day plus window that we can look at and say, these are the items we expect to harvest. So what we're doing essentially is helping with the land clearing. The second thing is we are ordering the hydroponic kits, which are important for existing farmers who have knowledge of hydroponics, because we're able to produce particularly things like leafy greens, etc., fairly quickly over the short term. These are 3 months, and the shorter we are able to harvest. And then the backyard kits for persons who are hobbyists, but also persons who wish to shave several dollars off their own food bill. That combination, we believe, is important. In addition, there are persons who we have already been engaging about in terms of setting up small aquaponics systems using fish or some protein, some species, tilapia or otherwise, to use the waste in order to grow, again, leafy greens and other items. In addition, we have talented persons in the poultry sector, but we now have to assist them in increasing dramatically their production, both of poultry meat as well as eggs. And so we have ordered already 7,000 layers, 2,000 of that number, which is produced by a local producer, will be distributed to the Family Islands, and the 5,000 will go primarily to New Providence. We are now ordering an additional 7,000 from overseas, and to give you the timeline, ordinarily when you order, it's about 3 weeks, so you could say 4 weeks, and then you seek to get them on shore and then immediately do the distribution. We also have to assist the sector in increasing their capacity to hatch, and so there are at least 2 notable hatcheries in New Providence, one in Eleuthera, and others we are reaching out to who are doing it on a small scale. We now need to help them increase their capacity so that we can produce more eggs. With less than 3 years, the Bahamas can be self-sufficient in egg, but it has to be a collective effort.
Now, you talk about cultivating. What plan is there to ensure there's minimal chance of mail boats damaging products and a timely delivery of these products?
Well, again, one is working with the Ministry of Transport and the Mailboat Association to look at the storage capacity. And there are ways you can augment the storage capacity. Certainly one size or one type does not fit all. Some produce need to be in cool storage. Some need to be in refrigerated storage. So one of the options that we are exploring, and BAMSI is already engaged in that quite successfully, is to use the reefer system, where you get to control your own temperature. And so as government agencies presently purchase from farmers, to then put it in a reefer and you can control the temperature. And of course, we believe that some of these functions, like the packing house, like the use of reefers, should eventually become, and that is in the medium term, become owned or be owned by the private sector. So farmers association or producer organizations should take possession of this part of the logistics. That is the purchase, the logistics of transport, but until we have finalized that component, the government is going to continue to fill that space over the course of the next few months.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Once again, that was Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources, Michael Pintard. Thank you so much, Mr. Pintard.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day.